What's going on, guys? I'm your host, Aaron Lloyd, and this is episode 55 of The Creation Grounds. Before I get into our next marvelous guest, I want to encourage you, yes, you, to like, share, subscribe, tell people about the podcast that you think will genuinely benefit from it, be inspired, motivated, educated, and all of that. And if you've been rocking with me this long, I appreciate you, and if you're just joining, welcome. My next guest is a casting director who you may have gone in for. Her name is Pat McCorkle, and she is the head of McCorkle Casting in New York City. She casts everything from regional theater to Broadway to off-Broadway to mega blockbusters. Her track record includes Californication, which got an Emmy nomination. She's cast and known actors that you all know of nowadays, like Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. She's auditioned Samuel L. Jackson, Holly Hunter, and the list goes on and on and on. In this episode, she talks about the casting process. She talks about what inspires her, what kind of work inspires her. She peels back the layers of what goes into the casting process that a lot of actors may not understand. She talks about what actors can do to improve their auditions. Can an actor recover from having a bad audition? Can't really put a broad scope over all casting directors, but for her specifically, talks about, does she advocate for actors that producers or directors might overlook? Does she put that extra push? And much, much more. This is going to be a very valuable episode. I hope it benefits you in your career. And enjoy this episode with Pat McCorkle. What's going on, Creation Grounds? I have Pat McCorkle, owner of McCorkle Casting, on with me. How you doing, Pat?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good to see your face. What inspires you? What inspires you nowadays, or what inspires you in general?
Good writing, good stories. It inspires me, and it's interesting in this kind of crazy time we're living in. I'm just seeing so many interesting new points of view, interesting new voices, and that's very exciting. A lot of new issues that people are writing about. Plus, all the restrictions have made things very interesting. I have two films I'm working on right now, and both of them have three people in them.
Just three?
Just three people.
Wow.
In this film, and they're good films.
Yeah.
But they have these very small casts and a limited budget, so it's good. It's a good thing.
It's good. So
that's the kind of stuff that I like, and I'm constantly reading the news and following what's going on in the world and seeing it reflected in the arts, so that we can get a different point of view and be knowledgeable about it all.
And how did you get your start in the arts? Where did that interest and love come from for you?
I started in high school. Is that a cliche? I had a really good drama teacher in high school, and I grew up in Central Jersey, so he was great, and he would bring us to the theater in New York all the time, and I just loved it. My parents loved the theater too, but they weren't in the arts at all. But I just really got into it, and then I went to Rutgers undergrad, and had some very interesting people who were very influential in terms of encouraging me to pursue the arts. I learned very quickly that I was not an actress. And what was interesting to me was the bigger vision of what the whole thing looked like. So I got very interested in directing, and I had some very strong directing teachers. Then after that, when I got out of Rutgers, I went to NYU and had a very strong program there. It was particularly a wonderful, wonderful teacher. I had a professor named Buzz Podwell. And Buzz was so influential for me and let me do my thing. And at that time, I was also, as we do in college, many times we have many fingers and many pies, so to speak. And I was the local high school. I was their drama director when I wasn't going to college. And I had to do productions with them. And Buzz actually came down and played banjo in my musical. As well as being my professor, just to encourage me. And then, so that's how I started. And I just started coming to the theater and going constantly to New York. I was very lucky to do that.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
what were the moments that led up to McCorkle Casting, the founding of that? Or I'm interested. What was it for you that made you decide you weren't an actor? Were you just not
Wasn't very good.
okay?
I
Okay.
mean, I did plays in college and such, and I mean, I guess I was alright. I don't know. It wasn't. I didn't really like people looking at me,
Okay.
which might be a limiting factor. But again, I was always much more interested in the bigger picture. Always was,
Yeah.
and where I think an actor needs to stay focused on what they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Where, as a director, you can have a bigger vision, and that's where I wanted to focus. But when I got to New York, when I decided to come to New York, I got offered. I did summer stock. I did New Jersey Shakes. And I did theater in Rhode Island and stuff. And when I got to New York, the opportunities for women at that time you could count on one hand. I mean, there were literally 5 famous women directors in the country. There just wasn't the opportunity. And I worked at Circle in the Square, and I was the assistant to Ted Mann. And one of the jobs he gave me was to work with Roger Steilberg, who he hired as a casting director. And Roger and I became fast friends. And he was the casting director. I was his assistant. But I got to work on 8 Broadway shows right off the bat with Roger. He was a great mentor. And to this day, I still incorporate a lot of what I learned from him. And after I was in Circle for 3 years, I got offered a job at TCG, Theater Communications Group, which I think probably most of your listeners know who they are. But when I was there, we had a casting department. They don't do that now. But there was a casting department. We cast all the regional theaters in the country. And so I got to meet everybody and work on so many new plays. And I had a wonderful person I worked with there, Michael Fender. And I was there for 2 years. And after the time there, I realized there was a program on PBS called Theater in America. And they would go into theaters all over the country and tape great shows and play them. And I went to my boss, Peter Zeisler, who was the original managing director of Guthrie, but Peter ran TCG at that time, and said, "Can we work on PBS? It doesn't violate our nonprofit status. They're working with these people." And that was not the way Peter saw TCG going. And in the meantime, I was working with Center Stage in Baltimore, and they had worked with their PBS station and done Bartleby the Scrivener, which won some Emmys. Mm-hmm. So I thought this was a great new branch that we could go where we wouldn't violate the terms of our contract. And Peter just didn't see it that way. So I thought, I just need to expand. So I ended up partnering back with my original partner, which was Roger, my original mentor. Mm-hmm. And we opened it up. Roger had great connections in the film and television world, so immediately right off the bat, we were doing that. And we were together for 2.5 years, and then Rogers went back to commercials. I don't like doing commercials. I'm not very good at it. And I decided to just truck out on my own, and that's where I am.
Nice.
So, yeah.
In the beginning, you mentioned that you did 8 Broadway shows when you first started, so the beginnings of McCorkle Casting were kind of like exciting, it sounds like.
Well, it wasn't McCorkle Casting then. It was just plain old Pat working with Roger. McCorkle Casting didn't create the company. McCorkle Sturtevant was created when I left TCG. Okay. That was that company, and then Roger left, so it became McCorkle Casting.
Got it. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So you like the big picture, you like putting things together. What is the most challenging aspect of casting for you, would you say?
Well, trying to get all the pieces together, because not only do I have to find the right talent, but I also have to make it work. I have to be able to, so you start out with the art part, which is getting the actor. And then you have to make the business part, which is doing the deal to get the actor there. So it's two-sided. Some casting directors don't like the negotiation at all, won't even do it. but I always find out I always find out that I have to do it, so I do. Um, so it's the fun part though is the challenging part is always to find innovative, creative ways to cast a show so that the audience, so that I fulfill the vision of the writer primarily and the director. That's what I really want to do: is tell this story in a way that the director and the writer are happy.
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
what how do casting directors secure projects? I don't know if a lot of actors know that. Like what goes into
It's sort of the same way actors do. I mean, you go by reputation in your work, and people call you, and you go in an interview, and you either get it or you don't. Uh, a lot of casting directors have agents. I have an agent, and he will send me a project, but I have to go in and interview exactly the way an actor has to interview, and then they decide yay or nay, and then we have to negotiate a deal.
nice.
But it's really word of mouth and references and things like that, and your work speaks for yourself for itself, so you have to be on that page with it.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of actors when they this is what I think actors are going to be interested in. What makes a memorable audition for casting directors or for you specifically? What are some of the most memorable things? They say in the first couple seconds, you guys know
Yeah.
like whether or not somebody has it. So what makes a memorable audition for you?
Well, a memorable audition is a really memorable audition is when you are so captivated by the performance of the actor, with all the things the actor brings to the table, that you're watching the character that you want them to play. You're not watching an actor playing a character, you're watching the character. And it has to do with the physicality, the voice, the interpretation, the understanding. And there can be different ways of making a character live. But you really want, my job is I'm a personal shopper for the director and the producer and the writer. And I'm trying to get the actor to inhabit the character that they want. And there might be different ways of doing that. And it's fun to present choices.
Yeah.
But that's what's exciting. That's very exciting when you see an actor come in and do a performance and you go, I don't know where the lines are. I just saw the character that was written.
Do you have any moments or actors that come to mind for you immediately that pops like that person is just incredible?
Well, when I was doing a film called School Ties, when Matt Damon came in when he was still a student at Harvard, and done a little thing, I went, well, that actor is something else, and where does he fit best in our project? Because he's so talented, he could do them all, And I remember first time I saw Holly Hunter, I had those same kind of vibes, and the first time I saw Paul Giamatti.
Incredible actor.
Yeah, they're all incredible actors.
Yeah.
But he was 29 years old, and I was doing a show at Lincoln Center, and I went, "Who is that?" That's exciting. That's very exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I could keep you on here talking about those stories forever because you've met some incredible and cast some incredible films. Are there any? What do you wish actors knew about the casting like process? A lot of times actors are coming in. Some actors feel like it's like casting directors are against them when it's not that at all. It's collaboration.
They're not. I mean, it's they're not against them, but why would they be in the room? I mean, we're not,
Absolutely.
looking for punishment. When you get invited into the room, as I said, we can go back to the analogy, and we're personal shoppers for the producers and the directors and such. And we want you to be good. We really want you to be good, and you were chosen to be there for a very specific reason. That there's something that a casting director sees in you that will fulfill the role, and we want you to just show us how you play the part. Bottom line. I mean, that's a real simple way, but that's what we want to see. A lot of times, actors spend more time looking at us or the people behind the table as opposed to actually deciding to delve into the character and just show us how the character should be played. We want you to be good. We're on your side. We're rooting for you. At least that's the way I run my office.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And what would you say, um, any actors that you've ever fought to secure the role for them, where you're fulfilling the writer and the director and the producer's vision, but you so believe like in that Paul Giamatti talent or whatever, and whoever doesn't see it that way, and you say, well, just give this person a chance. Have you had like moments like that?
I'm actually in one of those moments right now. I have this play that I'm working on, and I'm rooting for this one particular actress because I think she'll knock everybody's socks off with this part, but none of them know her.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this actress, and I've seen her in a number of projects, but she's from the West Coast, and and they're saying, well, and then they saw her today, and they're like, whoa, she's really good. So now they have to readjust their thinking. They said, please don't make a decision until you see this actress.
Yeah.
Because I think she's very special. And they did, and they were like, whoa, yeah, you're kind of right. And I've done that a couple times with people. If there's someone I feel is spot on, or well, even if you don't see it first, if there's qualities I see in them that are going to make the difference in what's important in the role.
Yeah. 100%. And what makes, I guess, the exact opposite of what a good audition would be, which is know your work, do your work, bring your choices. What makes a bad audition, and can an actor recover from that? Have you ever cast an actor who has had a bad audition, but you know that they're a good actor?
There are wonderful, wonderful actors who don't audition well. They really don't. Auditioning is a skill. It's just a skill set. Frequently, there are actors who are well established and who have done fantastic work, but a lot of them from out of town. They might be from Minneapolis or Oregon Shades or Seattle, where they don't audition much and they're not used to the audition process because everybody in town knows their work and knows this is what they do, this way or that way, and they can talk about it. So when they come into a room of strangers, they can get nervous or it's not their very best. I would tell you that one of the things that's really happening, it's been happening about the last 5 years, but boy, this last 2 years, even before COVID came in, everybody's been doing is everybody refers back to the directors you've worked with before, what theaters you've worked at before, and get some recommendations.
Yeah.
On this is a good person to work with. It's really important. I know a brilliant actor who gets so nervous when he comes in for auditions that his hands can't stop shaking, and doesn't have a disease, doesn't have Parkinson's or anything like that. It's just nerves.
Wow.
It doesn't happen in performance. And so when he auditions, people say, is there something wrong? And I'm going, it's just his nerves. So let it go. But people go back to, and then they'll call somebody who's worked with him several times.
Yeah.
And they'll say, no, that's not true. That's not who he is. Because, when you audition, it's just a little tiny bit of, like you're buying some cheese or something. You take a little slice, you taste it, and I'm going to buy that. An audition is just a little slice. Say, that's where I want to go. But sometimes it can be the most magnificent performance you've ever seen. Comes out of it, or it never changes, or it gets worse.
Yeah.
They're better. Some people are great at auditioning, and that's it at best. They get worse the more they think about it. We also have to know how an actor behaves on screen. I mean, in a camper, if we send a regional theater, how are they going to be there? How are they going to behave? Are they going to be good campers? And if somebody is not a good camper, the word spreads very quickly.
Yeah.
This is not a good person to be in the company. So my job is, you can hire that person, but just be aware there's been trouble.
Yeah.
in other situations. So the whole package has to be taken into consideration. We're held accountable if the actor misbehaves. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you know? Why did you send me an actor that was a problem?
Yeah.
So,
I think that's something that actors don't think about. Like, just it's all reputation, being a good human, being kind. Um,
yeah, and being a good casting director too.
yeah.
She sends us good people,
Yeah.
and we've never had a problem. So,
It's awesome. What do you believe what do you believe now that you did not believe 10 years ago? In terms of the casting process or the industry or just life in general?
I didn't believe we'd be using
Zoom.
this kind of medium like we're using now. I never believed that theater was going to be all over Zoom. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, that I never would have thought would happen, and I think it's here to stay on some level.
Yeah.
For theater, I think the unions are obviously going to have something to say about it, but I think the regional theaters are going to use the first round in Zoom and then fly in and do the second round in person. Maybe.
Hmm.
That I never would have thought. Honestly, 2 years ago I wouldn't have thought it. We were using tapes a lot. The whole industry is worldwide now.
Yeah.
I can be zooming somebody from South Africa. I can be zooming somebody from Tokyo and have them audition. We had a situation 2 years ago with a theater. It was before COVID, obviously, and we had a musical, two-person musical, and we were set, and music director was in Tokyo.
Wow.
And we lost one of the actors. So we literally had to do Skype auditions at 8 o'clock at night in New York, 8 o'clock in the morning in Tokyo for this musical we were doing. And so that kind of thing, the whole internet thing has become different. And likewise, all my directors and my personnel are always looking all over YouTube and everywhere to find any footage you put up, any actor put up about them. And it makes me a little crazy. We had recently a comedy, a play we were casting, and it was a broad comedy, really silly comedy. And we were using New York actors, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept saying, well, we want to see what footage you have on them. And I went, what difference does the footage make? And these were New York actors, and most of their footage was Law and Order, which isn't exactly silly comedy,
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, don't you have anything funny on them? And I went, there's nothing here that we're shooting that would rely on this. You have to rely on the auditions and talk to the people. You're going to have to stop relying so much on YouTube. It makes me a little nuts, so I try to defend the actor as much as I can.
But that's important to note that's important. Like, online presence is becoming more, so the YouTube, the TikTok, and all that is important.
All of it. I had one film that I'm not doing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I had one film that they wanted me to cast completely off of Instagram.
Wow. Off of the
And
followers?
I was like, yeah, just looking around Instagram and finding, people on it and something.
Wow.
And I just said, that's not, I look for actors. That's just not for me. That's not my world.
Yeah.
There are people that do that, and that's fine. Good luck to them. It's just, you come to the wrong person. Not everybody does everything, and
Yeah.
I appreciate the YouTube because sometimes it is an easy reference, but you just got to make sure you find the right thing.
Right. Well, that's interesting. And what are the similarities or differences between casting for theater, TV, and film? Because you do all those. Are there similarities in the process, or are they kind of different?
Well, I think you need a good actor in all of them, but the
Mm-hmm.
difference is that theater is, you have one perspective from an audience member, and the actor's in charge of filling the space and moving it all around and creating the character and doing all the techniques that you're trained to do and all of that material. In television and film, you have the same core issues. You still have the same character material you have to. You just don't have to cover 15 feet, 30 feet, 100 feet. You don't have to fill a space, which takes a certain skill set, but you have to maintain the same kind of intensity in terms of developing a character. And a lot of what the actor does is now controlled by the camera and how the camera likes you and how they edit it and all that kind of stuff, which you don't have at all in theater. When we shoot theater, I shoot it farther back. I shoot a film audition much closer. Not too close if it's a comedy, but close. But theater, I try to go like waist up in some distance, so we can see if you can fill a space and gives you a chance to move. That's the biggest thing. It's just their techniques, but the core of the actor and how an actor works is the same.
Right.
That's what he said.
And
you need to be in charge of it.
The actor being in charge, meaning owning the role in the space and all that.
Yeah, exactly right.
What kind of projects do you desire to do next? You said your office is very busy currently. You're working on indies. What kind of work are you drawn to? I know you said good writing. What do you desire to do next?
I like to do things that are where really, really influence people one way or another, be it a stage play or be it a feature that I like to entertain. I'm not going to do just infomercials, but I want to enlighten people and give a different perspective on it. And the same with theater. They're just different kind of qualities. It really is about the material, and is it fun? Is it going to be fun to work on? I mean, I like comedies. I have one film that I'm working on, sort of. It was a producer sent it to me. We were working on it, and then the producer decided to not continue with the project. And I love this movie. And I talked, and the writer and I became friendly, and so now I'm trying to get into other people to produce.
Nice.
I don't want to become a producer unless I just do art. I don't want to raise money. That's not my gig. It's really not my gig. But artistically, we're on the same page, and I think this could be a classic comedy. And I just think it's a great, great, great film. Just got to get somebody to agree with me.
Nice.
It's nuts. It's nuts because it just happens the playwright is best friends with this really hot up and coming male star who is absolutely perfect for it and wants to do it and is committed to doing it as soon as we can get it in the schedule. I mean, we got everything going for it.
Just the money.
Oh wait, just get the money. Yes, I need some money on that.
It'll happen. You know.
Yeah. Somebody will see it. Somebody rich will see it when they can get it.
Yeah. I ask all my guests this. This has been great talking to you and catching up. And I ask all my guests this. When you think of the word creative, who comes to mind for you and why?
Who comes to mind? Oh, that's a really good question. Creative. There's so many different levels on that. There's so many different people. I mean, in terms of writers, there's like Nottage and those kind of people. You talk about directors. You're talking about Steilberg and all those kind of people who are just. I mean, Spielberg's new West Side Story is just going to be terrific.
Yeah.
I kind of involved with it in the background because I'm with the Lawrence Hatcher Foundation, which is also Lawrence who wrote it.
Nice.
So I've been following along on that journey, and it's going to be terrific. So it's so exciting when you get that, when you get somebody who has a new vision on it. Some of these new directors and writers. I mean, I think David Cromer is extraordinary. He just looks at something and comes up with a new way to illuminate it for us. Those are kind of the people that I'm working with.
That's awesome. And how do people, if they have not been into your office, you haven't seen their work, how do people get in touch with you? How do they lend themselves to becoming aware of their work? How can people connect with you? Are you on social? Do you have how do people connect with you?
We have a website, McCorkle Casting.
Got it.
.com website, and that's the best way to get through to us through that. Right now, we're still at home in COVID land.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't really have an address to send to right now. So it's best to work through the website. The website's pretty good. The website's pretty up to date. So that's actually the best way to reach out to me.
Beautiful.
But I'm constantly looking. I'm constantly looking for talent. I'm working on a new off-Broadway show, and again, this is one where I need country western singers, and I need country western singers who really sing country western, genuinely sing. Don't have, and I love Broadway people, but it isn't a Broadway sound of country western singing. It's the genuine nitty gritty. So I'm reaching out now to Nashville, who wants to do a play. You know, I mean, I'm constantly looking new places. I don't find recycling the same 12 people exciting.
Yeah.
I'm just not interested in that at all.
Yeah. That's awesome. Pat McCorkle. It's been a pleasure.
It's been so great to see you.